A very good day to you. I'm Howard Feldman. I head up marketing and people at Synthesis Software Technology, and this is Synthesis TV.
This is Synthesis TV, keeping you on the edge of technology and business.
Joining me in the studio today, CEO of Trackmatic David Slotow. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Howard.
Tell me what Trackmatic is.
Trackmatic is a business I founded 12 years ago. We are essentially a software solution provider. We build our own tech for companies that want to run warehouse and fleet resources. So transport companies, warehousing companies, and our solution is there to drive efficiencies within the supply chain around distribution.
So is it divided into two parts, warehousing and delivery?
They're very tightly coupled.
Sure.
So the initial part of our evolution was around on-road execution, getting a better sense of what drivers were doing within the vehicles and how they were servicing customers. In the last few years, we've coupled that with the actual operation within the warehouse, within the yard, to look at how warehouses are loading trucks, positioning trucks, making sure they leave on time. Because what we realized is that they're obviously now executing well on the road, and we're watching what's going on, and they're comfortable that there's the efficient execution. But when vehicles were leaving late, there was a big question as to why. Was it a warehouse issue? Was it a transport issue? And we help drive those understandings and insights with our clients.
So the last couple of years with this exponential growth in online shopping and deliveries, that must have impacted quite significantly on your business.
So I think it's impacted on all transport companies.
Sure.
I think what we're finding is that there's a lot more pressure on the supply chain to get supplies to the stores. Interestingly enough, where we don't operate is strongly on the last mile space, or the home deliveries.
Right.
So that wasn't an area we had for several years chosen that to be an area we didn't want to focus on for various reasons. But what's happened is there's a lot of innovation and tech that's been introduced to that space. But with that comes the pressure to replenish the stores.
Right, so that's what I was thinking, because if you're a seller to a Take-A-Lot or somebody, you're under pressure to make sure that whether it's an online delivery, whether it's a pick and pay, whether it's whomever it is, they've got to have the product available.
Right. So if you look at for example, what I think is the leading solution as a Checker 6060, there's pressure to get the stock into the stores
in order
to fulfill and have no stock outages. So where we play is in that middle mile and first mile space, where there's more and more companies that have larger trucks that need to be optimizing and utilizing them to their maximum. We focus on making sure that our clients have the visibility, the insights to make the right decisions, reduce the turnaround times at the stores that they're delivering to, get those vehicles back faster and, fill them up again.
Right, because an idle truck is money lost.
Well, there's a fixed cost to it largely for the month. Saving except for the fuel operating costs and labor, but typically there's a lot more capacity available within those resources to, if we're watching it tighter and we're clearer on what optimization looks like, we can drive those efficiencies with our clients.
So how does Synthesis come into all of this?
So, as a tech business, we recognize that we have a single platform. It's a software as a service solution. We had historically always built our technology on premise. So, because of the performance requirements of our technology that we'd adopted and the types of operations that our clients were using, we needed real-time, always up solutions. We reached out to Synthesis recognizing that there was a need for cloud in the future evolution of our business. So whilst we understood that on-premise is important, there was an area of flex that we would be needing. Interestingly enough, we had historically used the Azure platform from Microsoft, and we'd chosen to go to AWS because of Synthesis.
Not because, it was
not by virtue of AWS.
The other way around. Okay.
So given what we'd seen through, what Synthesis were doing, we actually took the decision to move to AWS, being ushered by Synthesis and their team.
Right.
There is a component of our solution that is cloud. So we presented them with quite a challenge in that typically they're taking people from cloud to from on-premise to cloud. And in our case, we actually needed the hybrid, we made it very clear up front that we...
Why is that? Is that because the industry demanded it? Is it because it's a... What was the reason that you would need both?
I think we saw it as a core competency for us to have on-premise with a level of storage and data processing. We recognized that for a smaller business like ours, we would not be able to afford the level of uptime, redundancy, and performance in cloud that we would get from an infrastructure on-premise. And in doing so, we got the best of both worlds. But it wasn't a pure cloud versus on-premise migration. It was a case of saying...
And it wasn't as though it was just part of a move completely to cloud. You understood that you would need both.
Yes, absolutely.
Right, it wasn't a goal in of itself.
Yeah, and I think it's allowed us the ability to also make decisions around certain redundancies and security questions where not that cloud would be a vulnerability, but I think over time, as we scaled, cost would become an increasing challenge for us as we put more demand on, and we wouldn't get the benefits of those economies of scale.
What's so interesting to me is we often have these conversations. People... And in your case, it clearly wasn't the case. People often think, well, if we're moving in that direction, I've got to embrace technology and that's it. But they forget about the business and what drives their own business. Right. You seem to have had a very clear view on what your business needed and guided your technology provider that way. And I think that's quite interesting. And it actually takes a certain amount of confidence to do it because... I'm not a car person. I walk into a car dealership. I'm going to listen to the guy there, even though I know obviously I probably shouldn't, but because I don't have the knowledge and therefore I don't have the confidence.
Right.
So it's quite interesting that you knew what you needed in your own space. That space.
So I think that's also largely, a lot of the tech businesses today are startups, grow very, very quickly. I think we've been around 12 years. We've learned a lot of the hard lessons, having worked through the challenges of tech. And I think when we engaged with Synthesis a few years back, I think we had not just researched or thought of things, we'd actually firsthand, come to terms with, challenges around disk write and read speeds and networking speeds within a cabinet and the points of failure. So I think we had some experience and may even at the time have been a more of a security sense for us where we just felt this is what we're familiar with. We're comfortable with on-premise. We also were supported by our service providers and internal, CIO who was comfortable that we had that in hand. And I think we reached out. We dabbled into the cloud space, more exploratory things that would give us a quicker and easier way to do things with less of the heavy lifting. And so we had the best of both worlds. And I think we still today have the opportunity when we want to, innovate in something completely creative, especially where now we're bringing in a lot of third-party streams from other sources of data and IoT devices. That's where Synthesis, it's a, one call, jump on a session and we brief it and the guys go and architect and put it together in a design and say, well, great, we've got that. And then we can decide, do we want to, bring it on premise in terms of our current infrastructure, or it makes complete sense to, build it out? And I think we're challenging that all the time.
So it's also important about what you're saying, which is interesting, is that you built it with a strong enough foundation that as you evolve and as your business becomes, there are different requirements within your business that it's able to withstand that.
Yeah. So again, that came from a lot of lessons learned and mistakes made. But we didn't, when we set out in this journey of this business, we didn't imagine that we would be this always on 24 hours.
Oh, that's interesting.
Completely, our clients depend on us. And every one of our clients will overlap in some way. Warehouses run 24 hours.
Sure.
Guys leave early mornings. There's no downtime. There's no system maintenance. We have to have an environment today that we can completely make updates and changes and patching, etc., without any disruption to the core service. Yeah. And that's a hell of a place to be. It's not something we chose. It's we found ourselves.
So the demand has changed, because I recall quite a number of years ago when I was in the commodity space, you'd wait in the morning to get your warehousing reports to see what was there. I would imagine today nobody would tolerate that.
Not at all. And I think it goes beyond that. The level of real-time visibility in our yard execution space dealing with supplier deliveries into big DCs and distribution centers in South Africa. They want to know as soon as that vehicle's on premise, from the time they scanned in at the gate to the loading bay, the weighbridge, every movement of a truck. They want those time and motion studies. They want to make real-time decisions. If a vehicle's arriving too early and there's a slot available, they want to bring it onto the warehouse floor. And those are that's the value add that we bring to our clients, is they don't have to look out across a yard and or phone someone or check if they can find a transporter to see if that's.
And of course, from a security point of view, that adds a tremendous amount of depth.
That's a continuous challenge.
I'm sure.
How do we provision and ensure that vehicles coming, we are already pre-booked. We know the driver. We validated his license. All of those things, is part and parcel of the solution.
Yeah. So, what was your biggest challenge throughout this, do you think?
The journey of moving to cloud. I think firstly, it's getting an understanding where even for synthesis there was this sense of cloud versus not cloud. It was a bit binary, and I think the challenge initially was to say, well, are we making the right decision just because that's what that's our how we're holding, and likewise on the synthesis side we had to challenge some of the logic and say, well, do we really need it? Is it the right thing from a security perspective? So I think a lot of that was also getting the synthesis team familiar, the level of investment in time in a smaller business.
Yes.
We're not a bank, we're not an insurance company. I mean, if you look at
I know the guys love that. Like if they could immerse themselves.
There's a technical challenge, and that's always great for technical people. But when you're looking at an expenditure of time and key resources, you've got to weigh that up commercially, and I respect that. And we were very lucky that there was a willingness and an openness to say, well, let's explore a little bit further. We're not running the clock. Let's see what's going on here. It's a nice problem to solve, and let's go with it. And I think that was really the culture of synthesis's engagement made it possible, because that would have been a go no go type decision from a potential alternate. If we were to even consider such a thing.
So where to from here?
So I think for us as a business, we're at a point in our evolution where we've learned a lot of the lessons. We've made a lot of the mistakes. We've rebuilt, we've re-engineered, we've re-architected a lot based on what we've learned from synthesis, guided from synthesis, and from our own, things that worked well for us or served us well versus now not. I think for us, it's really an opportunity to scale. We're in a very opportune place in terms of the market. There's more and more need for these types of solutions. We're seeing it in the competition that's come to the market. We've always been, ahead of our industry, very innovative with our clients. And I think for us now, it's really taking advantage of the opportunities that present themselves. We're in the right place.
Absolutely right. And this is the right place, Synthesis TV. David Slotow joining us in the studio here for Synthesis TV. I'm Howard Feldman. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love your comments. We'd love your suggestions, and we'd love your ideas as to who you would like us to feature. I hope you have a great one. I'm Howard Feldman for Synthesis TV.